Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara here with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that continue to listen to the show. Have to apologize. We have been inconsistent with these podcasts over the last several months. Just with a lot of changes in business and podcasting and trying to kind of really revamp some of the things we're doing, the messages, we're getting out, the guests, et cetera, et cetera. So I apologize for those that are used to automatic kind of normal podcasts. We used to do at least 2 or 3 a week, and I apologize. I would like to think that probably by the end of February, early March, we'll be back to doing 2 to 3 a week. It's just that a lot of changes taking place right now. We're restructuring some of the shows and also trying to create more of a community show versus just a strictly real estate show. Although our main focus is always real estate, it's always specifically Bay Area real estate, but we'll continue to do that. But I want to thank those that continue to download the podcast, follow the show, send us information and feedback. We appreciate that very much. Today's topic, I'm going to cover 2 things. One is, you'll notice in the title, Boycott B of A, and then also don't be so quick to sell your home. And that'll be the first part of the show. I'm going to talk a little bit about boycotting B of A, Bank of America. And the second part of the show, I'll discuss a little bit about why I should think. My recommendation is don't be so quick to sell your home or real estate here in the Bay Area or in California or anywhere for that matter. So I'm going to talk about that. Why boycott B of A? I don't know if anybody's been watching the news lately, or if you're listening to this podcast, I would encourage you to do a little bit of research. This is not a political stance. If you know me, and I've been doing this show for 11 years, live radio, podcasting, I always try to report on the news, and certainly I have my opinion and my philosophy and my beliefs, but I also, first and foremost, I'm always an advocate of the consumer, protecting the consumer's rights, making sure that the privacy is withheld, and I should say upheld. And privacy is the utmost importance to most people. Well, if you're not quite aware of it, I would encourage you to go do your own research. There's not a lot of news on this, but it's very upsetting to me. It should be upsetting to anyone that has accounts with Bank of America, or anyone that has accounts with any other bank or anyone else that may be doing this. So during the week or the days leading into the riot at the Capitol, we found out later on, a couple of weeks later, that Bank of America was sharing private consumer information with the federal government and law enforcement agencies about people, that their spending habits during that time period in and around the Capitol riots. Well, it's easy to sell this off as, well, you're trying to help the government, you're trying to help law enforcement. So wait, I would be really, really cautious of this. I really would. And if some of you remember, I was reminded this the last couple of days, and I thought I would bring it up, and it was an interesting take. I don't know if most of you remember, but several years ago, it might have been 4 or 5 years ago, there was a phone stolen, and it was part of a crime. And the government, the FBI, requested that Apple disclose information about that phone. And guess what? Apple said no. We have strict privacy policies. I don't care what type of crime they were accused of being charged of, or what kind of incident here. We are not going to disclose that information because of privacy concerns. Well, this is interesting to me, because if we're going to play this, let's play it straight across the board. Why is Bank of America sharing personal private information with the government and government agencies to quote unquote help with identifying people that may be associated with the Capitol riots? Now, all of us want the people associated with the Capitol riots to be brought into custody. We all do. I do. It was a horrific event. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. However, if B of A or Apple or anyone else, in this case it's B of A, if they're going to be providing personal information, privacy information to the government, to the agencies, who knows who they provided it to? They need to get written authority and authorization from those consumers. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know, this is the kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen, you should be careful of. These are the kinds of things that if we're not careful, it's one more excuse why, oops, I'm sorry, I took your private information, but I really needed it for A, B, or C. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, and I would encourage you to forward this podcast to other people, friends, family, coworkers. And if you have, I don't have accounts with Bank of America, but not because of this, just because I don't like doing business with them, never have. So, but regardless, if you have a checking account, a savings account, an investment account, I don't care what it is, with B of A, how do you know that your personal information wasn't breached and shared with other people now or other agencies? And don't kid yourself. If you really think that your information's safe because the FBI has it, or someone in the government agency has it, or the CIA has it, or whoever, we've been through this before, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not fool ourselves. So I would encourage those listening to this podcast, go do your own research. I'm not saying that other companies aren't doing this, because I'm sure they are. Bank of America was the first one that was identified. There are probably going to be more that we find out. So the reporting is this. The information that is being led to believe is this. Bank of America shared personal information of thousands and thousands of their clients with government agencies. And they said they shared it just of information of people that may have been in Washington, D.C., renting hotels, renting rent-a-cars, flying in on airplanes. So if you made a purchase with a B of A credit card or banking account, or you used your B of A credit card to book a hotel room or rent a car or pay for gas in DC, and you were a legitimate visitor and you weren't part of the Capitol, guess what? There's a chance that your information was shared with a government agency. This is nonsense. I know some people might be listening to this going, Joe, what's the big deal? We want to be able to help our government find these radical people that attacked the Capitol. I get it. I want to do everything I can to apprehend them as well. But it has to be done right. You can see where this is going, right? I'm not a conspiracy guy. Anybody that's listened to my show the last 11 years know that. I am not a conspiracy person. But I do take personal pride in sharing with consumers and listeners, of which we have 10 to 12,000 downloads a month on average of this show, providing and passing on information that I find out. Now, if I find out over the next couple of days or weeks that this is not true and it's false, I'll be the first one to come on my podcast and say this. But the information that we're receiving and I'm hearing and we're getting is that thousands of people's private and personal spending information with Bank of America was handed over to the government in and around the time the Capitol was attacked several weeks ago. Well, think about this. You can't identify this stuff. So let me tell you what happens. Let me tell you how this happens. I'm going to guess, but I'm going to tell you. My guess is B of A took all the spending habits of anybody in the Washington, D.C. area, days leading up to it, days after the attack, and shared these things with government agencies. Now, I don't know who, I don't know how many people, I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you is they did it. They did it. They've already acknowledged they've done it. We don't know to what extent, but can you imagine? Now think about this, and I'm being serious. If there's a crime that takes place in San Francisco next week, in and around a certain date in February, and the FBI goes to Wells Fargo or Citibank or Union Bank or any other bank, or maybe another tech company, and says, we really want information about this robbery or about this crime that took place in San Francisco 2 weeks ago. We need you to cooperate and give this information to us. Well, it's one thing if B of A or anyone else sends out a disclaimer or contacts their customer and says, listen, Mr. Cucchiara, listen, Mr. Smith, listen, Sally Jones, we've been contacted by the FBI, and because they've asked us to disclose and give them information of the whereabouts and the spending habits of people in and around the Capitol during that time period, are you okay us sharing this information with them? That's a different story. Whether they call you, email you, you sign a disclaimer, whatever it may be. But these are the types of things you really have to be careful of. So when I say boycott B of A, I say ask questions. I say get out there, and if you have an account with Bank of America, I would find out what's going on. I don't want this taking place with my information. Forget about, everyone knows. I'm not exaggerating. Everyone knows the billions and billions of dollars that are stolen from people from taking private information. Can you imagine all these thousands of people with B of A accounts was shared with FBI's, with CIA, apparently government agencies? I don't know exactly who and how many. I just don't. But I don't care whether it was 10 people or 10,000. It doesn't matter. Here's the point. If that information gets in the hands of other people and other thieves and anybody that could breach, we have enough problems on a day-to-day basis trying to protect our own security with our accounts, with banking accounts and financial services. So this is serious stuff. I wanted to pass it along. I say boycott B of A because anyone, any company, and it's B of A now, just like I've talked about Wells Fargo and Citibank and other banks before, so I'm not picking on B of A. They just happen to be the ones that, in my opinion, were irresponsible enough to share this information without letting you know. I don't care the security purposes. I really don't. This is a right of privacy, and what's interesting is I wonder if we found out that a health company, a big medical or health company, shared thousands and thousands of information. We've seen it before. People were up in arms. They protested. They went out in the streets. They contacted the company. They bombarded the headquarters. We've seen and heard all this stuff, right? Why aren't people standing in front of Bank of America outraged that their personal information was shared without their knowledge or their consent? I would be. I'm not overreacting. And I know that a lot of these big corporations, believe me, I'm a big fan of capitalism and making your own way and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also a big fan of personal privacy and the respect of that. And I'm not naive enough. I understand how these things work. What I mean by that is B of A is a large corporation that pays a lot of money in lobbyists, pays a lot of money to politicians, that pays a lot of money to be where they are. And I get it. So I'm not naive to that. But that shouldn't give you the right to circumvent something so important as someone's personal privacy. It just shouldn't. So again, pass this information on. If you are a B of A customer, I would question it. I would call them. I would try to get some answers. I would find out if this had any effect on your information. Pass this podcast on to any friends, family, coworker that happens to have B of A accounts. Primarily, I'm guessing it's anybody that used credit cards, maybe B of A ATM cards, I guess, checking accounts. I'm guessing. Again, I just know that this information was shared. What's sad to me is that we're not hearing more about this. And there's a reason for it. And I'm being serious here. Anytime, usually, the old saying, when there's smoke, there's usually fire. Anytime someone's trying to cover something up and they're not completely open with it, usually there's something going on. It's a little bit fishy. And I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm saying it doesn't look good. And when some smoke is out there, you got to be careful because the fire might be coming. So last word on this, be careful. I don't care who it is, what company it is, our personal information, our private information is held sacred, and everyone owes it to each other to protect that the best we can. So I would look into that if it affected you or your personal friends, family, coworkers, share it with them, get the information, the news out there, get them talking about it and find out. Hopefully it hasn't affected people and hopefully there's no harsh after effects of this. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. The next part of the show is going to be don't be so quick to sell your home. I want to talk a little bit about this mass exodus we're hearing every day on social media and the news. We're hearing about how people are leaving California in droves, and that is true. There is hundreds of thousands of people. I think the number is 400,000 plus people, if I'm not mistaken. Close to 500,000 people left California in 2020. It's the first time, I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I think it is the first time or the first couple of times that more people have left than people have come into California. I could be wrong about that, but I think that is true. I'll get the numbers as soon as I get them. But the latest reportings I'm hearing, 2020 was one of the few years that more people left than people came in. Normally, let's face it, people are always leaving places. But normally in a place like California, more and more, a higher percentage of people were arriving in California than exiting. Well, this was the opposite. So more people exited in 2020 than came in. And I think that was the first or second time that happened in the last, 20, 30 plus years. So something to keep an eye on. I think we all probably know, we can't guess, but there's a lot of reasons why people would want to leave California. I've been in California my entire life. I'm a native. I was born in Northern California. I've been in Silicon Valley my entire life. Haven't lived anywhere, visited everywhere, but have not lived anywhere else long term. And so I know how wonderful it is, but I also know how expensive it is. And I also know how people are fed up with taxes and education and so many different things that California used to be known for and so good at. And now we've just suffered in so many different areas. And then, of course, this whole lockdown has a lot of people upset. And it has nothing to do what side of the politics you're on as much as what's right and what's wrong and what most people believe. And most people, there's a reason why Governor Newsom will likely be on the recall. I think they need 1.5 million signatures, and I think they're going to get there by March 15th. It looks like they're going to get there. And anytime you have anything that's going to be close to that, there's a large concern. And, again, right or wrong, whatever your politics, whatever your beliefs are, California has become super, super expensive. I think the only state more expensive than California is New York, if I'm not mistaken. The only taxes that are temporarily higher than California is New York. That might change. Our taxes are going up. Gas taxes are going up. The cost of doing everything is going up. They're trying to tax more real estate related items. They already have. That will continue. So I understand why people are leaving. I do. So it doesn't surprise me. So this part is not surprising to me. The point I want to make about don't be so quick to sell your home or your real estate is that don't do something that you're going to regret down the road. Try not to make a knee-jerk reaction when it comes to your long-term investments, whether it be stock market, in this case, real estate I'm talking about. I've had real estate for years. I still have real estate in California, and I'm not sure that I'll ever sell it all. That's not saying that I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm indifferent. I'm just saying that if I decide as a person to move or relocate or think about going somewhere else, my recommendation to you, if you're thinking about it, is, unless you really have to, don't be so quick to sell your home. Some people, before you know this is a really permanent move. Now, some people would say, Joe, that's easy for you to say, I need to sell my home to go buy another home. And I understand that. I'm not saying no matter what, don't do it. I'm saying if you could avoid selling your home right away, I would recommend not selling your home, either leveraging equity from it and buying another home out of state, keeping your home here and renting it, or letting a family member live in it, or do something, treat it as a second home depending on your income level. My point is, do everything you can not to emotionally do a knee-jerk reaction and sell your home, sell everything you have here, and then move somewhere, and then realize a year later that you made a big mistake. Now, again, I'm not assuming that you're making a mistake. I can tell you, I'm just going to guess, 35 or 40 people I know, business associates, friends, family members, back that have left the state in the last 2 years. And they have gone to places like Texas, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, North Carolina, kind of all over the place, right? I can tell you there's not been enough time yet for these people to have gone. But I can tell you there's enough people I know that have left and moved, and a fair amount of percentage. I don't have an exact, I haven't done a research survey here, but I if I were just to guess the people I know, 20 to 30% of them regret it. That's not an exact scientific data or research. I'm just saying, because I've been involved with real estate and lending for so many years and investments, and I've worked with people in financing and real estate that own one piece of property and people that own hundreds of pieces of property. So I've seen the full gamut. I'm saying, if you could avoid it, if you're thinking about making a move out of California, do yourself a favor, see if you could first either keep your home here and rent it for a while, and go rent somewhere where you're thinking about moving for 6 months to a year at least. I would recommend a year, because then you see and feel all seasons and times of the year. Like most people would say automatically, I'm going to go to Texas, I'm going to go to Arizona, I'm going to go to these places. It sounds great at the time, but I think most people forget what Texas and Arizona is like during the summertime. Most people forget about the storms that take place in Texas, the floods, the different things. And again, I don't say that to make people nervous or scare them. It's a reality. And, we deal with earthquakes, and we deal with high taxes and high gas prices and high home prices. And so we're not exempt from any of this. So my message today, if possible, if you're thinking about relocating out of California, my strong recommendation would be a couple different things. Take equity from your home. We're helping people do this right now as I speak. We're helping a bunch of people do this. They're pulling cash out of their home here in California. That allows them to go pay cash typically, or put a down payment on a home in Oregon or Arizona or Colorado or wherever it may be. We're helping literally hundreds of people do this right now. And so if you're thinking about this, if you want to consult with us, if you want to talk to me or a person on my team, or the real estate team, the financial planners, the CPAs, we have a whole team. If you want to talk to anybody about this and see if it's something that you want to do or consider, give us a call. Let us know. Most people know how to reach us, joe@reradiolive.com, or you could call 408 or text 408-838-9060. Again, that's 408-838-9060. That's my phone. You can text me, call me. I'm happy, of course. If I don't answer the phone, I'll get back to you. That's what our job is. That's how we do. We help people finance homes. We help people buy, sell homes. And we help navigate. We help them make wise decisions in and around their real estate. So someone might say, well, Joe, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could afford that. And of course, everybody's situation is different, but I will give you some different examples. So you could take money from your existing home while it's still primary residence. The best time to do it, because it's cost effective and it's the best. The rates are at all-time lows, by the way. So now it's a great time to do that. So now that it's still your primary residence, do a cash out refinance. I'll just give you an example. If you have the equity, take $400,000 out. Go buy a home in another place if that's the price point. These are just examples, take granted. Or take less money out and use it for a down payment out there. The idea is that you keep your real estate here for a while before you figure out exactly what you might want to do. Now, I'm not a CPA, but I can tell you, once you rent out your home, okay, you have about a 2-year period that you could work with to come back in and still deem that your primary residence without, issues in and around 1031 exchanges and different factors around whether it's a rental property or a primary residence. So check with your CPA on all this stuff. I'm not a CPA. I don't give tax advice. I'm just saying that these are some things you could do. The other thing you could do is there's cross collateral programs. So we could actually look at your property and lend you money temporarily. We don't have to do a cash out. It's a bridge loan. We could bridge money. Maybe you need money for 6 months or to a year or whatever. We could help you with that. We could even lend money off assets. And some people would say, well, what does that mean? We could do what's called pledged assets. So if you have $1 million or $2 million investments, believe it or not, depending on your investments and how they're invested, we could lend you money on those investments. If you could imagine like a lien on a property, these are lien on investments. So if you have $2 million in investments and we lend you $500,000, then $500,000 are tied up in that investment, which means you can't access that because you basically liened and borrowed and cross-collateralized that. There's a lot of different things you could do to keep your real estate before you automatically quickly think about selling it. And I understand some people just say, Joe, I'm done. I want to sell. I want to take my chips off the table. I've made a ton of money. I'm going to move. And I get it. And I really do. And I'm not discouraging anyone. Please don't hear me. I hope you don't hear me discouraging because everybody has to do what's best for themselves. What I'm simply saying is I've been in this business many years. My job is to present and provide you, the customer, information on real estate and lending and strategies and different things, investments and things that might help you navigate your real estate and finances. So if at all possible, or maybe you have 2 homes. This is another situation I'm seeing. Someone has 2 properties. So they sell one and keep one. And they rent one here, they sell the one so they can have the access and the capital to go buy a home somewhere else. Then you still have real estate in California. And I'm not suggesting keep real estate in California because for some reason it's magical and it'll always go up and nothing will ever happen. No, I'm saying it's likely that if you owned real estate here in California for a period of 7 or more years, it's probably a good chance that you have pretty good equity built up and you have a foothold in the area. What I'd hate to see you do, let's say you bought a property 10 years ago and you bought it for $1 million. And now it's worth 2 million or 2.5 million, right? That property that you bought for $1 million is now worth 2 million. Let's do this example. And you decide to uproot, sell it, move, and then a year later you decide to come back. Now you're going to come back into a market where you sold a house that you bought for $1 million, and now you're going to come back and buy that same house for over 2 million. Maybe. I'm not saying you're still going to do it, but you see my point? If you've already got those real estate gains and that equity gains, be careful about automatically selling a home in a place that you might come back to or you might still want an investment in. Be careful of that. Try to do everything you can to keep the property. Make your move, see if you like it, stay there for a year or more or less, and then make a decision. And if you absolutely love it, then all bets off, sell everything and go full bore and get it going. And I wish you all the best. I'm just giving these suggestions to people because I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, gosh, I wish I would have known that. Gosh, I wish someone would explain that to me. So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving you options. I'm saying, be careful. Don't be so quick to sell your home. There might be other options. And by the way, this just doesn't apply to California. If you own a home in North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, all these different places, I would be careful before you sell that property too. See, I'm a big fan of when you buy a property, don't ever sell it unless you have to. That's just the way I believe. But it's not always the case. It's not always, you can't always just buy and hold everything. I get that. A lot of us, you have to sell sometime. And so I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying, be careful. One of the things that I also advise, please, before you make any move with your real estate, your taxes, your finances, check with a real estate professional, check with a CPA, check with your financial planner, check with the people that could give you legitimate, caring advice about the decision you're about ready to make. People are making a lot of big decisions right now. And a lot of them are around real estate, a lot of them are around jobs, especially with the pandemic. Most people realizing they could work anywhere. Second home purchases are up 80% from 2 years ago, 80%. The reason for that is people are realizing they could work remotely. So they're buying second homes at places they could work from that they like. That's not necessarily a place they want to live, but maybe a place that they would like to spend more time, but they could also work. So as we wrap up the show, again, I want to thank those. Thank you for your patience. I apologize. We have not had more shows out. Believe me, we will pick up that tempo. We will start adding more shows. I encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast, pass it on to others. If you have any questions about real estate or financing, our financing teams here, rates are at all-time lows. One of the reasons the housing market's doing so well is because people are taking advantage of these historical low interest rates. Give us a call. We can help you with that. Give us a call if you need help with a real estate agent to buy or sell. We have great CPAs, great financial planners. We have a whole group of people that are eager to help if you need that. So thank you again for your time, and be sure to stay well, stay safe. And for more information, you could always go to reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. And for more information, Joe at reradiolive.com. And again, if you want to reach out to me, area code 408-838-9060. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care until next time.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.